Ben 10 is a character who surprisingly has many alternate variants. It quite literally got to the point where Ben had his own Spider-Verse/Invincible War saga, and I'm not even joking. Too bad it takes place in the War series, but anyway. A lot of these variants, including our Ben, are capable of protecting their respective universes from any threat, obviously. However, there is one variant who stands out amongst the rest, and that of course is Ben 10,000. Ben 10K is not only the first alternate Ben we get to see, but he stands out as, in my opinion, the most powerful version of the character. Today I will be breaking down not only his power but also his character, and why this is without a doubt Ben 10's strongest variant. Ben 10K was first showcased to us in season 3 of the original series, where Ben and Gwen are sent to the future on the day of Grandpa Max's birthday. Upon entering this alternate reality, we'd see that everything looks futuristic and advanced. Ben would see immediately that he's a hero in this world before Ben 10K arrives on the scene to help him, Gwen, and her counterpart out. We'd see my goat dripping in his success momentarily before then trying to haul our Ben out of his dimension. The whole idea of this episode is pretty much showing how Ben matured and isolated himself in order to keep the world safe at all costs. Specifically, it was events that occurred when he was 15 years old. Although he does eventually come around to maybe letting the human side of the hero take over a bit, I will say I do like seeing the concept of a Ben who takes his role as Earth's protector very seriously. On top of the cool future designs with the classic aliens, along with him taking down some of his old foes like Animo and Vilgax, this episode in my opinion capitalizes on this variant of Ben, and was one of the best episodes in the entire series. Now, we don't get to see him until another season later, however this episode is just as good if not even better than Ben 10K's introduction. We'd see later on in the future that he would actually have a son of his own named Ken. It would be Ken's 10th birthday, and so as a gift Ben decides to give him an Omnitrix, but he pretty much baby-proofed it and locked it with like 10 trash aliens and still has a cooldown. This eventually leads into Ken meeting Devin, who is Kevin 11's son, who would be plotting to release his dad from the null void. And he would manage to succeed, leading into Kevin 11,000 emerging, and he's just kind of a freak, bro, I'm not gonna lie. I like how he can use accelerate speed along with his transformation, of course, which was just terrifying to see as a kid. But after Ben would see his son getting hurt, this would lead into Ben locking in and instantly humbling Kevin with way big. Ben obviously is mad in this situation because he sees his son hurt, but I think there's a little more than that to take away from this. It's Ben 10 seeing the one thing that our Ben managed to make happen due to his interference. Had our Ben not lightened 10K up, he'd probably still be patrolling the city, not having time to raise his son or settle down. And I think it's fitting that to defeat this monster like Kevin, he needs to have those instances where he can't hesitate and act like a monster himself, which we even see his son picking up on. This episode is probably in the top 5 best episodes of the original, and it's an all-time classic in the entire franchise. I just hope the next time we see Ben 10K, he's just as cool and effective as when he was introduced. And this is the part of the video where I'm gonna kinda sound like a hater. You see, Ben 10K wouldn't return until like 2 whole series later, where he'd go on to help Paradox and our Ben from taking down Eon, who, mind you, is an alternate Ben himself who spiraled into madness trying to take down Ben 10. This version of the character, in my opinion, is probably the forgotten child of the 10K variants. You know how Ben can transform into all kinds of aliens, and how one of the main driving points of the show is Ben being able to transform? Yeah, Ben 10K pretty much just uses the powers but stays in his human form, which leads into a lot of weird scenes of Ben trying to fight alongside our Ben, but instead of being partially transformed or something to indicate he's gotten a mastery over his powers, he's just in his human form shooting fire with heat blast and moving fast with accelerate and growing somehow bigger with ultimate humongosaur, which in my opinion takes away the whole aspect of what Ben 10 is really about. I also felt that this return didn't really do much for our Ben because this is not the same one from our timeline. This is an alternate version of an OG Ben who met Ben 10K like he did in the original, which is why this version of him is probably a lot more lightened up and retained younger Ben's personality. And it's not like he's annoying or making stupid quips like how Ben 10 actually does in Omniverse, but really aside from this and him being able to use mana, I couldn't really help but feel hungry for more. The Eon stuff was really interesting, but I just wish there was more exchanges between Ben and his future self talking with him. Because if I'm being honest, Eon's best dynamic isn't even with Ben himself, rather it's with Paradox. So like I said, I couldn't really help but feel hungry for more. I also feel the idea of taking down someone like Eon should be a much bigger deal, which is what they pretty much redo in Omniverse, and they kinda do it better over there. Ben 10K and Omniverse would return to help our Ben after Maltron would cause a time war throughout the dimensions. Eon would be serving under him, and so this leads into Ben 10K and Paradox getting involved. He'd still retain his personality similar to his younger self, but still has that salt of maturity to make him distinct. And unlike an Ultimate Alien, he transformed. He uses what's called the Bi-Omnitrix, which allows him to fuse the biology of different aliens, giving him access to different powers at once, ranging from cool ones like Formungosaur to Big Chuck. Overall, this is much better in my opinion than what happened in Ultimate Alien, and I really can't complain here. The only thing I will say is that this version of Ben kind of has Omniverse syndrome, so he's kind of stupid. Because why on earth would you try and punch a time bomb? What did you think was gonna happen? And you know how I said that Eon and Paradox have a stronger dynamic than Ben and Eon? While Paradox and Eon are literally having a one-on-one, Big Chuck is fighting Eon's minions, bro, and literally committing cannibalism! However, I do like the idea of Atomic X because he's just pretty much the equivalent of a Dragon Ball character, and in my opinion, he gave Vilgax the most embarrassing L of his life. I have never seen something like this in a minute, bro. The concept of Atomic X is pretty much combining Ben's two strongest aliens and them coming together to fuse the best of both worlds, which results in one of the cleanest designs in the series, if I'm being honest. And you guys already know, if I'm complimenting Omniverse, you know I like this. Now, I know that Ben 10K is in the other series, but I'm not watching that godforsaken piece of garbage that ruined my childhood, aka the reboot, so I'll just leave the summary off here. Ben 10K, in my opinion, stands out as Ben's strongest variant without a doubt. Even in his own universe, he's taken down Animo, sent every relevant villain of his into the null void, has defeated both Vilgax 10,000 and Kevin 11,000, has defeated Ben's most dangerous variant, aka Eon. He's the first call Paradox makes whenever a threat in the multiverse goes down, and in my opinion, he just managed to live up to the name Hero of Heroes. Actually, Tyler, he's never used Alien X on screen while our Ben has gained mastery over him, so yeah, our Ben solos. I feel like that's kind of stupid because if those two were to fight, I'm pretty sure they would just both have access to Alien X, and although his fusions are splitting the DNA, the versatility allows him to kick his aliens into a different gear. For example, Formungasaur not only has some of the strength of Humungasaur, but also has the hand-to-hand combat skills of Forearms. Uprig allows him to manipulate technology while also being a master engineer, allowing him to create even stronger weapons and repair things at much faster speeds. You have Humungoopsaur? What? I guess he has Humungasaur's strength and Goop's invulnerability. And you have aliens like Shockhopper who... yeah, anyway, we have Big Chuck as well, who has way big strength and Upchuck's ability to eat and absorb whatever he consumes, which I mentioned earlier he uses to commit literal cannibalism. Now, I'm pretty sure you guys get the idea. Ben 10K is the hero of heroes, and without a doubt, Ben 10's strongest variant. Cobra Kai!